Well, I wanted to say, John and Shannon, before we get started, you guys were awesome on the Just the Zoo of Us with Ellen Weatherford. It was so awesome. Listening to you guys on that, it was fun when we had her on to talk flamingos, and it was fun to finally hear you guys on hers as well. So that was great.
It was great for her to
Yeah,
have us on, for
Was
sure.
it fun going on there?
It was. I mean, she let us talk for a long time about
she's
the
great.
museum, right?
She's so
fun.
good. Yeah.
And we don't, in a different way than we talk about it here. I didn't listen to the whole thing because I got annoyed with myself, but I hate listening to myself. I hate it. But I feel like I need to, because I need to know.
I listened to the whole thing. I thought it was great.
After a while, I'm like, I'm sick of hearing myself talk, turning it off.
Well, so this week we'll talk about acorn woodpeckers. I'm excited for this one. I feel like I've been kind of wanting to talk about acorn woodpeckers for a while now, but haven't known like a ton about them. But I saw one when I was in, I saw a couple when I was in California for the Rose Bowl when the Indiana Hoosiers beat
that
Alabama.
was a good weekend, wasn't it?
And me and all my friends.
Do you want to say that again,
Yeah, it was a great
RJ?
weekend.
What happened in California then? You want to say it
Yes,
again?
yes. When the Indiana Hoosiers beat Alabama at football. But we were, there's 80,000 people at the stadium all out in the tailgate grounds. Everybody's funneling in, and there's these like trees out front, and I see these birds like flying around, and you're going through these like turnstiles, just being like pushed, like herded like cattle into this thing. And every time I'm turning, I'm looking and seeing these things flying, and no one else was looking at them, and I couldn't tell what they were. And so I took a picture with my phone and then was zooming in on it because it was pretty far away from where we were, and put it into Merlin, and Merlin was wrong. Actually, Merlin thought it was a belted kingfisher. I was like, no, it's not. I knew it enough that it wasn't that. Yeah. But it was funny because my friends that are not birders were like, wait, what's that? And they were asking about, wait, there's an app where you can just put in a picture. And I was like, I'll show you guys what it is. But then I was like, oh no, this isn't
Darnold.
But it was still fun. Yeah, but Sam Darnold, yeah. But so I'm excited to finally talk about acorn woodpeckers because I feel like there's a lot to unpack on these these birds. So I don't know. I like a long time ago, there was that story that went viral and everything about how they stored so many acorns in there was like an exterminator that was doing work in somebody's house. And because these acorn woodpeckers, stash away and cache acorns for later, oftentimes it sounds like if they do it in something where the acorn will fall through the back, they'll just continue to feed it, even if they can't retrieve it. And so it sounded like this had been going on for like 2 to 3 years, that these acorn woodpeckers were putting acorns into this chimney, and it resulted in like 700 pounds of acorns that was in this person's chimney or in their wall. And this exterminator had to pull out, like, it was 8 garbage bags full of acorns that he said was over 20 feet tall in the sides of these people's houses. And so I was like blown away by that story, and I was like, oh, I can't wait for us to talk about these birds. And it turns out there's so many other like interesting things about them. So I'm excited for this one.
Yeah, I mean, they're a classic bird of western oak forests, and they have a look. So you saw them in flight. You notice the white on the wings, and they have white at the base of the tail. So they're super noticeable when they fly. They're medium sized, and then they have this facial pattern that they literally look like clowns, and it's the first thing they say on the Birds of North America species account, which I think is absolutely perfect. Because they just have just a clown-like facial pattern. So they're distinctive. Their vocalizations are kind of squeaky and bizarre, and then they do things like this with their storing of acorns all the time. I mean, they're just a really incredible bird. They're one of the better studied birds in North America in a lot of ways too.
But only from one place, maybe two. That I found interesting too. So there's Hastings Reserve has had since the 40s, I think, has had someone studying them. But there's a lot of their distribution that we don't know very much about. So we don't know how much variation there is in how they cache, how many they cache. They have some interesting reproductive behaviors too, that having to do with helpers. And we don't know much about how that is distributed too, what that kind of looks like. How related are the individuals that are helping or not? So there's lots we need to know, but we do know quite a bit about some aspects of their biology. And their scientific name I find really interesting too. Melanerpes is their genus name, and Formicivorous is their species name. We have 390 some odd of those, and there are 23 other 23 species in the genus. But so Melanerpes means melas means black, and herpes means a creeper. So it's a black creepery thing. So that kind of makes sense. But the Formicivorous, Formica means ants. So so that means ant eating. Virus means ant eating. So it means it describes their face, but there's no acorn in their scientific name, right? So their common name gets at what they mostly do, and their scientific name gets at what they also do, which is eat ants or eat insects. But so they've got their whole range of behaviors covered
Acorn
in
was,
their common and scientific names.
Acorn was too obvious.
Yeah.
Well, I think what it's getting at, though, too, which is interesting, is that a lot of woodpeckers like Harry and Downy, for instance, are definitely glowing along trees and gleaning off of the trunks and things. And acorn woodpeckers do a lot of fly catching. And so they kind of forage differently than a lot of other types of woodpeckers that people are familiar with.
That's so interesting you say that, John, because the ones that I saw in Pasadena, so they were on the side of this tree, and they were this is a term I learned from you, they were like sallying out, and I was like, it looked like they were catching bugs or something, and I didn't realize that acorn woodpeckers did that. So when I was trying to figure out what they were from like my picture and everything, I kind of doubted that it was an acorn woodpecker because I didn't realize that they were that they would eat insects like that. So that was totally like what I saw. It reminded me of a flycatcher or something. So that's really interesting.
Cool.
And one of the neat things about them too is that they live up in, I think of them from Arizona as a bird that's up in the foothills of the mountains because that's where the oaks are. But in places like California where the oaks come down into the lowlands, they've moved into a lot of the metropolitan areas like Los Angeles.
I like them because they are happy birds to me, because they fly around in these groups. It's like they always have a friend. So I don't know why. I guess it's kind of silly,
That's
but
cool.
Well, their whole lifestyle.
So,
I mean, when people see these greeneries or these places where they'll find a dead tree, it doesn't matter what species, telephone poles, and they'll just hammer these small, in a healthy tree, they'll just hammer right into the bark just far enough so that it doesn't affect the tree, and they'll make holes, and then that's where they put the acorns. And there can be thousands of holes in a given tree. So they're just, I don't know. I think they, again, because they're in groups like this, doing this exercise, they're just really fun to watch.
they are. Their spatial memory must be really good too. Like you're going to spend a lot of time on one or a few trees that you need to find your way back to that place that you stashed your acorns. So I think they must have good
that's an interesting
memory.
question. I wonder, because they're not doing the long distance caching, like all the caching happens in one place. But one thing that does happen is, acorn crops vary from year to year. And so there's definitely there are lean years where there's no acorns, and the birds will actually leave local areas to try to find other areas where they can find more acorns. So yeah, and that's an interesting thing about the spatial memory. I mean, they're not, in general, they're supposed to be resident, but there's one population in southern Arizona where folks have documented that they leave in the winter and head down south into the Sierra Madres of Mexico.
There's lots of plumage variation
Doesn't it-
too. Lots of plumage variation in them.
Oh, really?
7 subspecies that have been named. So
the interesting thing there is there's one subspecies in North America. And then when you get down into Mexico, there start to be a bunch of different populations. And one of the things I'm finding, I learned recently through actually one of our graduate students in a class I was teaching called biogeography, is that there are over 100 species of oaks in Mexico. And I'm wondering whether there's any relationship at all between sort of the distributions of some of those oaks and the distributions of some of these different populations of acorn woodpeckers,
Oh,
because I go all the way, the northern limit of, or the southern limit of oaks is in the Andes of Colombia. And there are
you
different
we're,
populations of,
we're going to have Nick
go ahead.
Mason on in March. And do you know this study, John, that he did with Ben Freeman? So they use this niche modeling. So what you do is you put in all the parameters of distributions of known things, and it can tell you where the species might be found also. And you can look at that from lots of different ways. You can say, okay, it's predicted to be here, but it's not. Why not? And what they did was see that a particular oak, the distribution of that oak perfectly coincided with the limit of the distribution of the birds. The bird is completely tied to one species of oak in the Andes.
Oh, very cool.
Which I found really, really cool.
So like a seed disperser, like the bird is responsible for moving the seeds to plant the trees, and that's its range. Wow, that's so cool.
And there's an interesting thing.
Cool.
I mean, again, technically speaking, I mean, acorn woodpeckers are breaking these seeds open and eating the seeds. So they're actually seed predators when it comes right down to it. They're not passing the whole acorn through their system per se, but clearly they, if like Shannon was saying with spatial memory, if they're moving seeds around, they may, well, you were pointing out that some of them may not go where they're supposed to end up for the acorn woodpecker, in which case that helps spread the oak.
Yeah. So I was wondering, with how we were talking about they're flying around in groups, do they share a cache, or does every individual have an individual cache?
They share because they spend so much time together.
They share. Okay, so
I don't know what the distribution of the group, like say the 8 individuals that are flying together, mostly they're related to each other, but I don't know if there's a difference in who does the most caching, but they're all together when this is happening. So it's not like one is sneaking away to cache acorns away from the other ones. That doesn't happen. And if they have such good spatial memory, that even if you're not the one caching it this time, you're going to be the one remembering where things were cached, or you're going to starve, or you have to spend a lot more time looking for things if you're not paying attention to what's going on. You don't learn how to cook. You're going to spend a lot of time making yourself food.
Yes. So is that unique to this type of woodpecker? Or, I mean, is that unique that they're sharing, or is that like beyond their, nuclear family?
So I think that's a really interesting question. There are some other species in this genus which clearly have family groups, but aren't as well studied. And I think a lot. So they're the only one of the species of the genus that caches like this in huge amounts.
Okay.
And so that's probably led to some of the differences. But that's another thing. It's kind of like a chicken and egg thing. Is how are those two things related? If you have a group together, you can defend a specific territory, which means you may be able to find lots of acorns in a given territory. And so, I think that's a great question.
So I've looked up because I got fascinated by the granary trees, however you say it. And that's what the trees where they cache these things are. And they can have 50,000 acorns in one tree.
My gosh.
What?
I mean, and if you look at the pictures of the trees, you're like, where's the tree? All you see are dots of acorns. The whole tree. It's just mind-boggling.
That's crazy.
And
at some point, it's like more acorn than tree.
But I want to circle back to RJ's point about the fact that they've had these places where acorn woodpeckers have just continued to put stuff in that they can't get at. Sounds like there's a little bit of a psychosis there with respect to not being able to figure out that because if you're not getting it back, then why keep doing it?
Exactly. Yeah, it's like feeding a piggy bank and never being able to get the money.
Yeah, it's going back into your
Yes.
parents' pocket.
Right.
I know. I
And I
wondered
was
what they did with
wondering,
that 700 pounds, the exterminator. Like,
right.
give it back to him.
Yeah, there you
Try
go.
I
again.
know. I'm sure those.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I remember. So the story RJ's talking about, I remember the hook, or like the thing that made the people realize whose house that was, realize there was a problem, was there was like
Oh
maggots or
God,
something,
how gross.
or some kind of
Well, there's,
bug
I'm
that was from the
I'm sure
acorns.
there's some
Yeah.
insect that takes advantage of laying its eggs and having the larvae develop on acorns. Yeah.
Bad enough they're wrecking your
Yeah, exactly.
either the siding on your house or their chimney. Apparently they've cached in things like the radiators of cars. So
Oh my
Oh.
gosh.
they
That's
they
not
are
good.
programmed to do this with whatever surface seems
That's
available to them to stick an acorn in.
I
And
mean,
And I was wondering, how long
go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No,
Go
go
ahead,
ahead.
Shannon. Oh, I was just going to ask, how long can a acorn last? When
I don't
is
know.
this when they're caching? Are they thinking like in 2 years I'll eat this? Or
so again, I think the interesting thing about oaks is they produce a huge amount of acorns when they're producing, and so it depends a lot on the year. But I was thinking about, when you think about that larvae, if you're a acorn woodpecker, that larvae is great for you. So I wonder
food?
if one of the
Yeah.
things they like to do is put these oaks acorns in trees where larvae the flies or whatever they are can get to them, and that actually ends up being
Oh.
beneficial to the acorn woodpeckers in the long run.
Some protein? Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
wonder.
interesting. It's a more
Yeah,
well-rounded
there's
meal.
a delicacy. Yeah.
Yeah.
I also
It's a little worm
I'm
in
also
my
really
acorn.
curious about the fact that the acorns have a lot of tannins in them, and tannins are bad for proteins. For example, they coagulate or crystallize, whatever it is that they do to proteins. So if you're trying to build yourself up and surviving a winter, you have to have some mechanism to deal with eating something, primarily your primary diet, eating that with all those tannins in them. And so apparently they must have some aspect of their metabolism, because if you feed some birds that might eat acorns, exclusively feed them acorns or a diet high in tannins, they start losing weight. But it takes a lot longer of a complete acorn diet for an acorn woodpecker to start losing weight. So they've clearly adapted some aspect of their physiology and metabolism that is enabling them to not suffer, which you think you'd have to, or you couldn't get so tied to having acorns. It's kind of silly. You got to figure out how to, in an evolutionary sense, you got to figure out how to get the nutrients you need out of that, or you can't specialize in it.
I also think that, again, we focus on the acorns. When you look at when they've been analyzed stomach contents of birds and what they've been eating, they all have insects. And so one of the advantages of being down by the Rose Bowl, for instance, in the winter, and then on breeding season, may be the fact that there are insects for them to eat.
And the other thing I
Despite
read,
the fact that
Can we?
Indiana's there.
Yeah. Yeah, they were eating corn
Yeah,
dogs and deep fried Snickers, other things from the Indiana State Fair.
now, why would you deep fry a Snicker? I do not understand. I don't understand.
Have you tried it,
No, I
Shannon?
don't understand American fairs. I just don't.
I've got to say, it's pretty good.
Do they batter it and
I
fry
believe
it?
it.
What,
Yeah.
what,
They do,
Like in
yeah,
what
and then you kind of eat it with
fishes?
like a fork and knife, so it kind of falls
like in what
apart.
fish is
Amanda,
battered in?
I don't
or-
know.
Is
Oh,
it good?
gross.
Have
I
you
hope
had
they
it,
use a
Amanda?
different
I'm not
batter.
sure.
I haven't. Have
Nope.
you, John?
Is it crunchy?
No. You know what I think is
No, it's super
It's like
oozy. It's like
gooey,
yeah,
right?
gooey.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah,
thanks.
it's like
I-
it's
it's-
like a It's like a
It's
larva on
funny.
an
I was going to
acorn.
say.
Yeah,
There
exactly.
we
It's
go.
mushy on the inside. Yeah.
Mm.
I think like what's funny about fairs, because RJ and I have been to like a couple county fairs, and you go to a fair and they have like this. We went to one in Wisconsin this summer, and they have the most incredible array of food, right, RJ?
Yeah, it's stuff
And
you'd never
yeah,
heard
it's
of,
like,
where you're like, how did they come up with
yeah,
this?
exactly. And it's stuff you'd only see at a fair, like a deep fried Snicker and whatever. But like not far from the fair is like all the livestock stuff, and it's the most disgusting thing you'll ever see. You see things you don't see in normal life. And it's hilarious to me that it's juxtaposed with all this like amazing food, because like if you go to the livestock area, you're like, I'm never eating again.
But when you go to
The
festivals,
things you see the
you go to
animals do.
festivals in Louisiana, you get crawfish bread and things like that. Absolute deliciousness.
Ugh.
Um,
Yum.
Not quite the same in Indiana.
no, I guess not. So I also learned.
So I wanted to go.
No, go ahead.
Oh,
No,
go ahead,
Go
Shannon.
ahead, RJ.
I just wanted to talk a little bit more just about kind of like the family dynamic with the acorn woodpeckers, because I feel like that was so interesting. So it sounded like that they have these groups, that there's like multiple mating pairs within the group, and then they all kind of help raise the chicks. Like, so it's, people will be helping raise a chick that's not even theirs, and then other ones stick around for like multiple generations to help raise the ones below them, and then meanwhile there's like other ones made, like multiple mating pairs all within this group. I thought that was such like an interesting, I don't know, dynamic, and maybe it's more common in birds than I realize, and maybe it's
No,
just more studied in acorn
no,
woodpeckers.
I
But
don't think it's
no,
common.
okay,
There's some
okay,
interesting things like
Cool.
anis, which are a group of cuckoos, where the they're groups you can have like 20 eggs in a nest, because different females are laying in the same nest. But as I understand the story there, what happens is the subordinate females start laying, and subsequent females come along and throw out eggs, and may not throw out all of them, but then finally the last female lays the egg. So a lot of the eggs belong to the dominant female, and yet at the same time, eggs of other females are
Hmm.
getting in there. Whereas I feel like you're describing, acorn woodpeckers are just kind of, eh, there's very little aggression within the group, and dominance is not is clear cut with respect to how they're doing things.
I mean, apparently, this is interesting genomically, because when you fly around and hang out with related individuals, you have an issue with inbreeding, potentially, right? So if you mate too much with your brother or sister or your son or something like that, that's not good for population dynamics. But um, in this bird, apparently, and they do hang out, that when the head guy, when he dies, it's usually someone from outside of the group that comes in to be the dominant one again. And I think that's a protection against inbreeding. And so you're getting a lot of helping still. And apparently females, it's really weird. They produce a lot of dummy eggs because they're trying to
hmm.
get all of the females' reproductive output a little bit synced, because of caring for young. You want them to come out at roughly the same time. So they do some egg dumping, but they also produce a lot of little tiny eggs that can get either dumped out of the nests or eaten. They don't have yolk or anything like that, so they're not ever going to uh, become a baby bird. But they're these little tiny eggs that they produce, which I also found I didn't know that until I started reading up about them.
Is that unique to this
It's
type
a
of
really
bird, or
unusual system. Like I don't think there are many others that are like what acorn woodpeckers do.
so crazy? Huh. So, John, I wanted to ask about, how you guys were saying there's not a lot of aggression, and is that and how they kind of work together? Is it because they have so much food? Like they're so
It's a good question, because again, there's so much variation. I mean, I would think yes, and yet it doesn't. I'm not sure how it. So, I mean, it's a good question because I'm not sure how it breaks down when food gets scarce. It's not like they suddenly go after each
Okay.
other when food gets scarce. They just
Yeah.
move out into the landscape and start looking for places where they can find more food. And so,
I mean, it could be the relatedness
yeah.
too protects against that a little bit, Amanda. You might be less likely to turf out things that you
Okay.
share, more genes with than a random individual from within your species. So there is that
Okay.
kind of angle to it. I also read that, and I find this completely fascinating, that the females hide their copulations so that the males don't know which eggs belong to them. And so that's an advantage of sinking all the eggs, is that the males are going to help all of the nestlings because they don't know which ones belong to them, because they don't know how many times the other females have been having sex on the side, and because you don't see it. And I find that completely. I mean, that needs to be
really interesting.
a Real Housewives kind of reality show on
Seriously,
TV. We have a new
amazing.
idea for the next.
Yes.
You think birds are sweet? Well, look at this. The Real Housewives of California are acorn woodpeckers and how they behave.
The real woodpeckers
That's
of Pasadena.
Yeah.
See, again, I mean, they look like clowns. So how's that gonna? How are you
Yeah.
gonna pull that off? I'm just.
That's the tagline. You just wrote the tagline, John.
Yeah.
Wow. So Shannon, I'm so curious about, when you're talking about sinking and some of the birds laying dummy eggs that aren't embryos or, could never become birds, do birds have control of their ovulation? Like,
I don't know
they're
about
like, oh, she's
I don't know about all
ovulating,
of
so
them, but yes, they can store sperm and decide when to fertilize eggs with stored sperm. Not all species. Yeah, their females have control over some of these things. When we talked about ducks, we talked about females fing out sperm and using other sperm to fertilize. There is some ability to. I don't even know how they know it. Do they know where they're storing it? They remember.
Yeah.
They decide later on which male who
Right.
they mated with has better sperm. It's bizarre to me. I don't
That's
know
amazing. Yeah.
how that works.
That's crazy. Humans definitely can't do that for everyone to know.
There's 23andMe has
in case you were wondering.
23andMe has exposed a lot of stuff like that that's gone on in humans, right? A lot of adoptions, a lot of extramarital fertilizations of young that are unknown until these DNA tests get done. So it's a very traumatic aspect. You have to be ready for that if you're going to send your DNA away to know this. And the other thing, and this is horrible, that these DNA companies have exposed is the high amount and underappreciated or reported amount of incest that's happening. And that's what another thing that these DNA tests have shown. So there's a lot of bad behavior of males that is not restricted to the bird world, that's for sure, but that is happening, that is not being reported or not being, the trauma associated with that on girls is not being understood or handled. And these people are not being punished. The men are not being punished for this kind of behavior. Yeah, way to go for me to take from a happy bird to.
I'm trying to think of a segue.
Debbie Downer over here.
It's hard to just segue.
Think twice before you send your DNA away to get sequenced.
Well, is there anything else on the acorn woodpecker? Or otherwise, we do have a mailbag question.
I think we should go to the mailbag because I think I've made a downer bad enough. Let's do something else.
No. All right. Well, this is a exciting mailbag question because we have a listener from the Netherlands that wrote to us. So I think I'm pronouncing this right. I think it's Michiel. So he says, "Hi guys, I recently discovered your podcast and have been enjoying it ever since. Listening to your latest revisit of the Harlequin duck made me want to ask you guys to do an episode on the spectacled
Eider.
eider. Is it
Eider.
eider?
Eider.
Am I saying that? Eider? Okay, spectacled eider. As you know, they are native to Alaska, and what is cool is that only fairly recently research uncovered their wintering habitat in the Bering Sea. Now, what is extra special is that for the past couple of months, a male has turned up in the North Sea near the Dutch island of Texel. It has quickly become the most viewed bird
No
in the
kidding.
Netherlands. We've seen many we've seen many Dutch birders, but also people from the US and Canada have come to Texel because the spectacled eiders are so hard to see in their natural habitat. To add to the story, unfortunately the bird fell ill a little while ago, although because of the exceptional care of the people at Ecomer has made a full recovery. And then he shared a link to the story. So
That's
I
awesome.
remember the first
Thanks,
eider I
McKeel.
ever saw, and I'm not that fond of ducks. Eiders are amazing in what they look like. So we should. I don't know why we never thought about doing an eider one. John, do you remember the first time you saw an eider?
I'm an eider in
Wait, so what is it?
Massachusetts. Yeah.
Is it a type
Yeah.
of duck?
So
Yeah.
there
Does it
are
look like a
4
duck?
species.
Yeah.
There's king eider, spectacled eider, a Steller's eider, and common eider. And they're all tundra breeding birds. Common eider's really widespread, and the others are less so, with Stellers and spectacled being really restricted range birds that are high latitude all the time, pretty much.
They were painted not by Impressionists or Renoir or anything like that, right? They were painted by modern art, because they just have patches of different colors all over them and weird patterns. They're really fascinating in how
Very
they look,
cool.
and we should do some research on them. That would be fun.
Yeah. I want to do the spectacled
Yeah,
one
for
for
sure.
Yeah, that'd be a good one.
One thing I want to point out is what this highlights is North American birding can be pretty crazy, as we've talked about, in terms of people chasing things. It's actually pales in comparison at some level to what people will do in the UK and I guess clearly also in parts of Europe when a bird like that shows up. I vividly remember this picture with hundreds of people standing somewhere in southern England, and there was no sign of anything. It just looked like a big crowd, be like it was when at the Rose Bowl for the Indiana game, and they're all there to see a great cheek thrush that showed up. And so
cool.
I'm guessing they're probably, we could probably go online and find pictures of an awful lot of people standing on whatever cold shore they had to go see that spectacle.
That's so
Yeah,
cool.
it is.
Jeez, so are the eiders just New World?
No,
or are there some in Europe?
They breed in the high Arctic tundra all around. Yeah. So the breeding range of,
very cool.
Well, we'll have to do one and we can talk about it, but definitely, as he was saying, the breeding areas were known for spectacled eider, and then it wasn't clear what happened to the population, and it turns out that they spent a lot of time on the out in the Bering Sea. Clearly one of them, I mean, this is an interesting thing with global warming, is open water now exists all the way around the Arctic Circle. You know, the boats, they're beginning to look at the options for actually boat travel through those areas, and the birds are going to be responding similarly. So it may be that this could be just a vagrant. I mean, one of the things I wanted to point out was, like I said about snowy owls earlier, that's probably not a bird that would get back to its breeding grounds, I would think, although I could be wrong.
Right.
But because of the changing open waters, particularly if there's opportunities to forage and that bird does get back, you could see changes in the wintering distribution of Steller's eiders over time as a result of less ice being present up in a lot of those areas now.
Cool. Thanks, McKeel, for writing in. That's exciting that people in the Netherlands are listening, and we're excited now to do an eider episode.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so I wanted to close it out on this one. So I just wanted to remind everyone, like, no matter where you are, it's cool that you can see birds. You can be watching the Indiana Hoosiers take down a football dynasty like Alabama that's never going to be the same, and watch your Hoosiers rise into becoming this powerhouse, and all the while see Acorn Woodpecker when
And
you're on your
you
way
can
in.
wake
So
up too, RJ.
you never know
You'll
what you're
wake
going to
up
see.
someday and realize that this was a one-off thing in your
No.
dreams.
I don't think so,
Yeah.
Shannon. So look around you, because you never know when
Good
you're
luck
going to see
with-
birds.
Good luck with that.
Awesome. That's awesome.
Well done.
Yes.